Gary, a useful point at the weekend, a hard-fought point in the end. Many injury problems, or do we not know yet?
I don't know, not really. I think we got one or two knocks from the game, but you'd always expect that. You got one or two that are still a little bit stiff this morning, but again, you'd expect that because some of those players haven't played as much game time as you'd like at this point. So it's only to be expected that sometimes on a Monday you come in and maybe someone would have to have an active recovery rather than get down to work straight away. So, but yeah, no, I don't see too many being unavailable for the game. I think Bruno still not progressed as quickly as we'd like, so I would imagine he's still going to be a strong doubt for Wednesday night. But other than that, I think everyone's more or less ready and raring to go.
And you made a couple of changes. You brought Tom Edwards in, and he acquitted himself as well as he could, given it was his first match of the season. But you've now got another player you can bring in, and you're probably looking for some more. But the person that must be knocking on the door more than most is Peter Crouch.
I think in terms of his performance, that's what you want the players to do. Any player that's not in the team, you want to knock on the door, not just proverbially. You know, you want them to actually to do it out on the pitch and make you feel as though you have to play him. You know, and that's what he's done. His performances really have meant that he's a very strong option. But I think the thing with Crouch is it's the debate always in our minds is you know, if he starts the game, will he have the same effect for the whole of the game, or you know, does he have the effect because he's able to come on and throw everything into it for those last periods? So you know, and that's something we'll find out. But his certainly performances have been excellent. I think that every now and then by bringing him on, it gives one or two a bit of a get out. I think you know, people can just play up to Crouchy with less quality than you'd like to do, and I think that's something we have to look at, and we have to perhaps use Crouchy as a way of passing the ball in front and getting it wide, and then bringing Crouchy into play rather than feeling like he has to always be on the end of the first pass, you know. So, but we know he can do that. We know he's got good ability. But I've been really pleased with his input from the bench so far, and he's had a real effect on all of the games.
And Saido Berahino too. He was playing this week. You have any thoughts on how he performed in his first half?
I thought he did okay. I think again it's always a fine line between feeling someone coming in for their first start for a long time has to be outstanding and score straight away to give them an opportunity to play again. I think we had the same situation with Bojan the first home game, where he did well in certain instances, and you have to maybe look to pick a different type of team for certain games. But I think both of those players have showed what quality they've got. I think what we now need to do is try to get it out of them, or whoever plays in those areas, for longer periods of the game.
You said after the first match at Leeds and the home match that people had got to learn quickly, and reputations mean nothing in this game. Ryan Shawcross and Peter Crouch after the game said that they felt that more players were getting to grips with the circumstances. Certainly it's a lot more physical if you look at Joe Allen's misfortune.
Yeah.
How do you feel? What improvements do you think you've seen? I mean, you must have seen some gradual improvements since the very first match.
I think overall of the games, I think it's one where, of course, you want to stand here screaming about the points you've got, or you want to stand here screaming about how good the performances are. But I think what you have to do is when we haven't performed as well as we'd like, you have to then take the small bits that we have done, and I think that's what any manager will try to do. You can't focus on so many things. You have to try to pick little bits and keep trying to improve them, and hope they improve quickly. But what you would say is from the first game to the second game, and particularly into the third game, there have been small improvements, you know, not as quickly and as big as we'd like, but small improvements. I thought the aptitude, I thought the work ethic, I thought the fight in the team was far better than the first game against Leeds. I thought the courage in the way that we came out second half and actually attacked with a little bit more intensity, and played with a little bit more drive second half and belief, and got back into the game, which wasn't easy to do, because you can imagine when a team goes down and confidence isn't as good as you'd like, you can imagine it can then dissipate really quickly. But it didn't. They stuck at it, and now what we've got to do is find an even better balance, going into a week where we've got 2 home games, you know, and that's what we'll work to do, and that's what we're hoping to achieve.
There's never a good time to give away a goal, but we seem to give away goals at just the most incredibly bad times, don't we? Is that something that you're trying to instill in the team, that we got to play for 47 or 95 minutes?
Well, I think what you're always trying to instill in the team is to make better decisions, you know, and what you've seen so far is not just some young players, but some older players have made elementary mistakes, you know, and if you want to win any game of football, away from home, at home, any division, you have to cut out the errors. You have to be, you know, you have to do the basic defensive side of the game really well. You have to make it very hard for any team to get anything against you, and then it's about your quality. But what we're doing at the moment is we've made very, very simple mistakes in all of the games at poor times, which has probably compounded the problem. You know, at Leeds, while we felt we hadn't played well at 1-0, it's not a massive problem. We've had moments ourselves first half, and then we give a goal away on the stroke of half time, but we don't need to. Exactly the same on the game at the weekend, you know, where we get ourselves into a position where we're back in the game and we actually have a good period after the goal. Again, confidence lifts whenever we get a good moment. Confidence, you can see, lifting straight away. And then we make it hard for ourselves once again by giving a silly free kick away on 45 minutes and then conceding a poor goal. So we're having to atone for our own errors at the moment. So what we've got to do is cut those out, and then it'll be down to the quality of our game and whether we can win the game. But they're part of football, and they're part of what the issues are if you don't do those basics well.
We've got 3 games in a very short space of time. Looking at the Wigan team, it's not going to be easy. I know no games are easy, but it'll be a difficult game, won't it, on Wednesday?
I think they're all difficult games. I think if you look at Leeds, if you look at Brentford, you look at Preston, they're all teams that have played together for a while. You look at Wigan, it's a team that have played together for a while. They'll work hard, they'll try to stop you playing, they'll attack with a little bit of cohesion because, again, the players know each other. But what I would say is we have to show our quality. You know, we have to put the effort and the endeavour of the Preston game into the match, into the same performance, and then we have to show a lot more quality when we get a chance to. And that was, I think, for the first 10-15 minutes, you know, we wanted to play with that intensity, maybe to make the game easy early on, and then when it settled down, then we've got to make good decisions. And what we probably did is we tried to force it for too long in the game, and it's something that where we want to find a better balance.
And finally, from me, are you going to try and encourage Eric Peters to shoot on sight all the time now?
Well, it was certainly a good finish. You know, I think Eric will be disappointed about elements of the game, because what we should really be doing is we should be talking about what a fantastic forward run and what a fantastically read situation for him, and what a great finish to score his first goal apart from pre-season in I believe quite a few years. So he's got the ability to do that. What we then need to do is you know, make some better decisions at the other end, because of course that's your job. So, but look, players don't mean to make mistakes, players don't make bad decisions on purpose, but what we've got to do is we've got to work with them to make better decisions that you would expect of some of those players of experience.
Thank you.
Going back to the Gallagher challenge on Joe Allen, if one of your players had done that, would you consider disciplining him?
It's a hard one really, isn't it? Because I don't think it's the sort of thing you want to particularly see. But again, I think it's always difficult, because whenever you get asked these situations, it then gets flipped around to sound like you're bleating about it again on the Monday morning, on the Monday afternoon. But the reality was, it's part of the game. It's not a part of the game we want to see. That's why the officials are there. They're there to deal with situations. You know, Joe made a tackle from behind, I think just a little bit before that. And it wasn't a great tackle, but that's what the referee's there for. He then gave a foul, he then booked Joe, I think it was, and dealt with a situation. What he didn't do was deal with a situation when we needed him to in the game. And I think if a player had got sent off for that, and if the player was then missing, then of course you would have to do something about it. But listen, I could go into the comments after the game. You know, again, Alex is going to protect his player. I'm going to try and stick up for my player, so it is what it is.
You talked about getting performances out of players. You talked about Bojan and Saido and this sort of thing. Well, I can understand with Bojan, but with Saido, he's played under only purist. He tried to get performances out of him. He couldn't do it. Came here, Mark used the same thing. He thought he could get something out of him. Failed. Paul Ambers in January thought, what shall I buy a striker? No, I think I can get a performance out of that with Saido again. And now you're saying the same thing. Do you really think that you can actually do that with Saido?
What I think is that at this moment in time, you know, he's our player and he's in the building, and I have to try to do that. That's my job, you know, whether or not, you know. I think if we're sat here saying that we're turning down a £10 million offer for Saido because we think we can get it out of him, I think that's a slightly different conversation. But the reality is, you know, we think we can improve his situation, and I think I have to try to do that as a manager. The players that are at the club, I have to try to get the best out of them. That's my job, you know, and I certainly think we can get better performances in. I think we tend to say the same things after games sometimes. I think sometimes it's up to the players themselves to put better performances in, you know, and that's not just Saido, that's everybody. There's a lot of good players here, but you know, we want to see better performances in that makes your mind up very easily on team selection. But but whatever's gone on before, you know, Saido's here, Saido's our player, so my job is to try and get more out of him, you know. I appreciate the situation, I appreciate the question you've asked, but I've got to try.
Another surprise choice for Saturday evening's game was replaced by Tom Edwards. Tom Edwards, good game, but I think we were surprised that Moisbar didn't get a game. Are you saving him for these two home games? Is that the idea, or do you have a slight injury or something?
No, it was a tactical decision. I didn't feel that defensively we were strong enough in the previous games to give us a base. I felt that Tom Edwards could come in and do that. I think that apart from his mistake, which I think was you know, a little bit unfortunate, and you know, a mistake by Tom, which I think ordinarily a 19-year-old might find it difficult to then deal with afterwards. I thought he dealt with it quite well. I thought he kept going. He put some good balls into the box. But I just think at the moment what we've got to do, we're asking the players to do the basics right, and I just felt Tom would be able to go in there and offer us a better platform to do that. We know Moritz is a very good player. Moritz is a very attacking or attack-minded right back, and at the moment, unfortunately, we're having to defend probably more than we'd like to. So therefore, you know, that was a decision I made.
Is there any news about the die? Perhaps moving on loan move?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Another player absent from the squad has been Charlie Adams. Is he
Yeah.
potential?
Charlie's. What I would say about Charlie is I think that when I came in, I think Charlie himself probably would say that in an ideal world he would probably want a fresh start somewhere in terms of his career, because he's not played very much for a few years. But what I would say with him is, and I think we're open-minded to that, but what I would say with him is, in his credit, he's trained very, very well. He's conducted himself around the place really well. I think we've probably all had a chat with him about his interviews, maybe saying they're not the most productive for the club at times. But what I would say is he's worked hard and he's trained well, and he's another one that you know, I think some of these decisions on some of these players will be easier to make when the window shuts and we know exactly where we are with everybody. Because I've said it before, I think we've got quite a few sort of moving parts at the minute, which is, you know, sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but happens when you're a team that's been relegated. You've got some players that might not see themselves ideally being here, and that makes it difficult, I think, until the window closes and everyone's got a bit more clarity.
You brought in Cuco Martina from Everton on Friday.
Yeah.
Didn't quite make the squad on Saturday. Is he likely to be involved in the next two games this week?
He's likely to be involved. Whether he actually is involved, obviously I'll make that decision behind sort of closed doors. But what I felt as though on Friday was that, having spoke to Cuco, he only played 15 minutes for Everton pre-season against Bury. He's trained but not had any real match exposure, and I just felt if we could have done the deal on Thursday, maybe we would have had enough time to get him involved. But as it was, he only really did 45 minutes training. I felt I was tempted, but I felt as though it was probably too soon to chuck him into the action. So therefore, he will get some minutes tonight for the 23s. but not enough to rule him out of any of the games coming up. So we'll see how he does. And again, I think we'll only really know when we see, you know, how he looks in games and how match. He's obviously not going to be completely match sharp, but it's whether he's close enough to being match sharp to come straight into consideration. But we'd like to get him involved in the next 2 games. But of course, we still want to win games and perform well. Therefore, we have to just make sure that everyone's ready for that.
And I know, of course, we'll be looking to get the best result in every game. But after some tough away fixtures, how important can 2 home games undoubtedly be for you this season?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're always mindful and respectful of the fact we've got 2 opponents coming to try and take points off us, and we'll have to work incredibly hard. But when you've got 2 home games in a week, you see with a championship how a lot can turn in a week. You know, you can suddenly be looking at 6 points more than you had in the first place, which can massively transform how everyone feels about it. So, but we've got to take the first game. We've got to see if we can put a good enough performance in, a performance that builds a little bit more on the previous 3 in terms of some improvements in areas that we think we need to improve on. And that's what it is. We have to focus on this game, and then the next one will take care of itself. But certainly it's a big week for us. We're working hard to try and get some positive results.
And the Stoke City away end at Preston was the highest attendance in the Football League for an away support. How impressed have you been with the Stoke fans so far this season?
I've been really impressed, and I think my frustration is that, of course, after a disappointing season last year, we wanted to give the fans that early bit of positivity, and I appreciate over the summer that they were hopefully infused by what we're trying to do in terms of the signings we're trying to make, and we wanted to hit the ground running, and whilst it's only very, very early days yet, of course we haven't managed to do that. But the fact that they've showed up in those big numbers, the fact they've been in such great voice, regardless of the games, will only help us. And for me, I've been disappointed because you want to give them a little bit of something back, but they've got to keep trying to do what they can do and drive the team on, and it will help massively. And what the team have got to do is we've got to now try and give them a little bit of something back.
Okay, thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thank you.